Adele Nazarian is a political commentator and she's now joining us from Washington, D.C. Good to see you, Adele, and welcome to Race to Power. The political polls or the pollsters have been deviating, they've been fluctuating ever since January. But now the political or the, how do I say it? How do I put it? I'm trying to put it in better terms. The likelihood of Joe Biden satisfying Americans has decreased over the months. Why is it so? Has he failed in his presidency?
Eric, great to be on with you again. You know, it's interesting. We saw a very similar dynamic when in 2016 it was Hillary versus Trump, and we saw them boosting, the polls and, adding numbers here and there and selectively choosing, a demographic that would lend results that were what the media networks wanted. So I have to tell you, I think what the CNN poll obviously shows Trump leading. I think that's pretty accurate. But what I think also people need to look at is the NBC News poll, which we'll get to in a second. But I want to say, back to answer your question, I do think that everyday Americans are losing faith in Joe Biden's ability to lead the country from an economic perspective. I think we've seen now, three wars essentially, 2 wars ongoing that the America has entered since he's taken office. And this is just costing taxpayers billions of more dollars. There's more, 61 billion sent again to Ukraine foreign aid. This is precisely the very thing that Donald Trump stood against. And if you can take him from a purely economic policy and just a policy standpoint and perspective, I think everyday Americans truly do feel safer from a policy perspective with a Trump presidency as opposed to a Biden presidency, especially with how, this Middle East conflict has been handled. Right. And I think that also is showing. I'd love to address the NBC poll also, if you'll let me.
Okay, before you address the NBC poll, let's talk about Trump. If these trials that he's currently facing were not there, could he have an edge possibly in the 2024 elections?
Oh, definitely. I think it actually is two-pronged. I think it's a catch-22 in a sense. If the trials, if they hadn't thrown everything in the kitchen sink after him and gone after him the way that they're going, over something that I don't think is even, it's crazy. It's very hyped up and it's completely political. I think he'd have a higher percentage lead over Biden. However, I do also think that, believe it or not, those who are paying close attention and are doing their due diligence, doing their homework, are seeing that this is politically motivated. And I think it's even brought some voters who maybe were not even interested in engaging in voting to actually register, to actually go towards Trump, due to the fact that this is a clear overstepping of the judicial process and the politicization of it. So I think it's worked in both ways. It's both hurt him, but it's also helped him. It really depends on who you speak with.
Adele, you did request to address the NBC poll. I'll give you just a few seconds to address it.
Thank you. I just want to say quickly, it's fascinating to me how NBC put out a poll where they actually said, based on everyday Americans' media consumption of national news, Biden actually leads with those who consume national news from legacy media, and those who don't watch political news actually are voting for Trump. Those who get their news instead through social media and alternative platforms, I think that does the networks in and of themselves to show where their political biases are. So it's going to be a very, very tough race ahead. I think Trump did well in terms of using the media in 2016 to his advantage. This time, clearly, it's not helping him when you go to legacy media and traditional media sources.
All right. Adele Nazarian, as always, thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.